There are some things that I do on every single song that when I tell people how I do this, they're always super surprised and often question whether or not I should be doing this stuff. And I've gotten comments in a lot of YouTube videos about like, why in the world don't you do these couple things? But I think not doing these things is part of what gives me an edge. So I'm gonna explain it to you. Hey everyone, I'm Cole Caparoon. Thank you for stopping by for another video. Now the first thing and the thing that people are probably the most surprised by when I tell them that I don't do this is that I don't use templates. Ever. On any song, ever. Now I will import Pro Tools settings, I/O settings, bus settings, routing, stuff like that. But I never import a template that has a particular track layout or a particular routing already set up or particular plugins in place or particular auxes already ready to go with reverbs and delays on them or anything like that. I never ever use templates. And it is simply because I want the song to tell me what it needs. I don't want to be influenced by my template, regardless of how many templates I could have or how many various different templates I could create for different genres or different song types. I don't want any of that. When I mix a song, I faders up and I listen to the song and I let the song tell me what it needs. And this makes sure that I'm doing something unique for every single song. I don't want to be influenced by like my template already has this reverb and this delay set up in these settings, and so I'm just tempted to just go ahead and push those aux sends up on that vocal and that's good enough. I don't want to be tempted to always use the same compressor on a vocal or always use the same EQ on a guitar track or always use the same snare reverb or always use the same snare sample. I want the song to tell me what it needs. And I find that the best way, for me personally anyway, to make sure that I'm doing my best work, to make sure that I'm giving every song the most that I can give it to be unique and special, is by never using templates. And so I don't. I don't even use presets on plugins hardly at all. I have a couple presets for like my multi-band compressor, my FabFilter multi-band compressors. I have a de-esser preset and a multi-band vocal preset, and that's my starting place. But the only reason I even use those presets is because it takes so long to set up exactly the complicated setup that I want to have set up for that particular use case, that it's a time saver to just have the plugin. Okay, now we're at a starting point, and then I can adjust input, threshold, all the different parameters that I want per band on my multiband. Now you could probably argue that a couple of my hardware pieces that very rarely change would be presets. For instance, my drum bus compressors, they're pretty much the same on most songs, but I have multiple ones and I'm constantly switching between the compressors so that way I'm still choosing the flavor that I want for the song. Okay, next up, I don't really use buses. I'm testing a new saturation plugin right now that is really fantastic. It's called Lacuna, and I'll be doing a video on it when it finally gets released. It's the best saturation plugin I've ever used. But my friend Casey, who's one of the people creating this plugin, he uses buses extensively, and we got into a long conversation the other day about why I don't use buses. And it's something that a lot of people get really surprised by. Now, I always use a parallel drum bus when I'm mixing real drums. There's always, all of the drum shells are fed to two auxes that are identical inputs, but one of them has compression and the other one doesn't. And this lets me blend between compressed drum sound and uncompressed drum sound, and I automate that throughout the mix, throughout the song. I also obviously use a mix bus, but outside of that, I rarely use buses for anything else. And it's partially because I don't want to spend the time setting it up and losing fresh perspective unless it's to solve a very particular goal. For instance, if I have got a whole bunch of vocal tracks and the point of those vocal tracks is for it to sound like one cohesive group, like a choir thing, I'm trying to do a simulated choir thing, or a gang vocal, or something like that, where a bunch of vocals were tracked independently of each other, but the goal is to make it sound like a group, then I will put those all on the same same bus so I can process them as a group, just as in if they were recorded as a group. And that is pretty much the only time I ever use buses. I use groups in Pro Tools, and when I group stuff together, I use groups pretty extensively, and I can group different, guitar tracks together or whatever, and all my automation, my volume automation and whatever follows all the groups. And so I just don't find it necessary to spend the time to set up buses, because every single minute that I'm spending doing something maybe unnecessary in a song, I'm losing fresh perspective. And that means I'm gonna make worse mix decisions. So I only use buses when I intend to process things as a group, but I almost never find it necessary. But I get stuff to mix all the time, and there's like a kick bus and a snare bus and an overhead bus and a tom bus and a drum bus and there's one bass guitar and then also a bass bus and like just an infinite number of buses. And all that does is just make stuff way more complicated. It makes you mix slower, at least for me. It makes me mix slower. And that is the opposite of everything I'm trying to do. Okay, next up. I never record DI'd guitars. Especially in rock and metal, it has become so normal to record a DI with your guitar tracks so that way you can reamp and change tones later. And I never do this. Not ever for any genre. I'm a big fan of committing to a sound and following it through all the way to the end of a song. Because when you do that, that's when you really, really learn. You learn from your mistakes. You learn from the things that were happy accidents. When you just commit to a sound and print it as the guitar player or whatever is performing it, then you are locked into that sound, and it really makes you get good at choosing tones, at creating sounds. And arguably, in my opinion, it makes you better at it than, oh, well, we can tweak that tone later. Let's just capture a random sound with the DI, and then once the song's totally done, then we'll choose guitar tones. I don't like that approach personally at all. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of getting ready to go back to recording guitars with microphones and cabinets. The Waza tube amp expander that I've been using and have showed off recently is really, really great. But I have like 3 sounds in it that I like. And one of the things that I like the most about using microphones on cabinets is every time I set the microphone up, I'm getting a slightly different sound. Every time I'm setting up a new tone for a song, I get all of the variables of the guitar, the amp, the cabinet, the speakers in the cabinet, the microphones, and the microphone preamps. And I get to choose these combinations to sculpt interesting, unique guitar tones. When I'm just using a cabinet simulator, I'm removing a huge variable there because I can only get a couple decent sounds out of any of these cabinet simulators or IRs. And so I'm removing tons of the personality that might be baked in from song to song to song. But when I'm recording a DI'd guitar, I'm forfeiting a ton of that, because I can literally just not worry about it, and that, I promise you, that leads people. It certainly leads me, but it leads a lot of people to not learn guitar tones like they could if they were sculpting tones from scratch and having to live with the results over and over and over across hundreds or thousands of songs and decades of time. There are links in the description down below for every single piece of gear that I use, but anytime you guys need any piece of musical gear, you can jump on any one of my videos, click on any link in the description of any video, and once you're on the site, you can purchase absolutely anything you need, whether it's a pack of strings or your holy grail compressor or your next guitar or your next holy grail microphone. When you do that, it costs you nothing extra, but it is a massive help to this channel and helps me keep making content just like this. And almost all of those links go to Sweetwater. So huge thanks to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video and just about all of my videos. And thank you guys so much for using the links in the description of any one of my videos. Anytime you need to purchase absolutely anything, it means a whole lot to me that you guys support the people that support me. Sweetwater has been just honestly a massive, massive supporter of this channel. They have helped me out more than I can begin to explain to you guys, helped me accomplish things I want to accomplish, helped me create the videos that I want to create. So thank you guys for using the links to purchase anything, anytime you need to purchase anything. Thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. Okay, the next one is vocal compression. Now I feel like people that watch this channel for a long time, you know, I compress vocals pretty hard when I'm tracking. It is not uncommon for me to compress a vocal between 15 and 20 dB of gain reduction while tracking on the way into Pro Tools. That's compression that you can't undo because you're printing that to tape. Now, yes, you are taking a chance that that sound you're printing to tape is maybe not the best choice that you could possibly make. But again, this is where you learn the most. This is where your skill set grows the fastest, is by making those mistakes and being like, oh, that should have been a little bit different setting, or I should have used a different compressor. And I'm very, very particular about the compressors that I use when I'm tracking for this. Not every compressor is capable of hitting 20 dB of gain reduction on a vocal first layer of compression on the way to tape and it's sounding good. And there's a big responsibility on the settings of the compressors, and it's slightly different for each compressor and it's slightly different for each singer, but there's a lot of weight or responsibility on the settings of those compressors in order for it to sound good hitting it that hard. But it is pretty often when I tell people that I will compress a vocal 20 dB on the way into Pro Tools and they're like, what? Excuse me? I thought you were only supposed to compress a vocal 3 or 4 dB. Well, if it sounds good, it is good. And my goal when I'm tracking absolutely anything is to make it sound finished as it hits my interface. My goal with every single track is to be able to push the faders up with no more EQ and compression in Pro Tools and it be done sounding. Now, obviously, it's really hard to actually get it done sounding, especially depending on the genre and the vibe of the song, but that's the goal. How close can I get it to finished right out of the gate? Some of this stuff is scary. No DIs on guitars, tracking vocals with tons of compression. Some of this stuff, like the idea that you have to just commit and live with the results, it's intimidating. And it's especially intimidating for beginning engineers and producers because, especially with compression, it takes years to be able to really hear compression very, very well. It takes a long time for your ear to develop to be able to accurately tell what's happening here. But I promise you that you will get better faster if you commit. If you're willing to just, I like this sound, we're going for it, then leaving all of those decisions to be made in the future. You have to commit. You have to finish projects, and then you have to reflect on them down the road, weeks or months after they are completed. That is how you grow. Don't forget to hit the links in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.